Franz von Kearney, writings by Frank Schmidt on the Danube Swabian people. These collected writings are republished in memory of the author, Frank Schmidt, so that others may continue to enjoy his work. May his spirit live on. Stefan Jäger, a profile of a renowned Danube Swabian folk artist who left a legacy of paintings that capture the essence of life in our former homeland, when, as some would say, the world was still in order. Anyone visiting a Danube Swabian club, be it in North and South America, Europe, or Australia, has surely seen a reproduction of Stefan Jäger's panoramic painting, depicting the arrival of German IA. Danube Swabian, colonists on the desolate plains of 18th century Habsburg Hungary. Originally titled The Arrival of German Colonists in Banat, it is probably the most realistic portrayal of our ancestors' migration to the Pannonian Lowlands still in existence. I have studied this triptych painting so often that I can readily recount its salient features. In the middle distance, the endless plain is broken by a copse of swamp willows. The soggy earth is deeply rutted by wagon wheels. On the first panel, a group of settlers is just arriving, and one man has stopped by a tree stump to retie his shoelaces. Another is leading his small boy by the hand, and is perhaps thinking of the freedoms a respected emperor has granted the German settlers for all time. In order to encourage them to colonize the depopulated wasteland, Prince Eugene's armies had won back from the Turkish occupiers. A young mother with a child slung over her back and a bundle of food dangling from her arm strides confidently to her destination. Beside her, a blonde-haired girl carries a sibling piggyback. The two men in the lead seem glad that the journey's end is in sight and are hurrying to meet a landsman they have recognized among the earlier arrivals. In the middle panel is a man who has put down his pack waves to someone he has spotted in the crowd. Others in period Hessian and Black Forest attire relaxed while waiting for their land grants. Some sit on the grass like the family in the center foreground. Others at the back of the canvas earnestly discuss mutual interests. One man takes a catnap using a bundle of clothes as a pillow while his wife nurses the baby. On top of her pack of personal belongings rests a favorite potted plant, a bit of Germany to be rooted in her new homeland. Another man sits pensively in the back of a ladder wagon, perhaps trying to hold back a twinge of homesickness. On the right, a group of men gather around a government land agent listening attentively to his instructions. They wear tri-corner hats and their hair is braided in pigtails. In the left foreground, a woman wearing a Hessian wrought caption, the bonnet made famous by Little Red Riding Hood or vice versa, sits on a pile of logs. Her tired little girl is fast asleep on her lap. A man in a light-colored coat with a walking stick exchanges a few words with her as he passes by. The logs in the foreground, the rafters on the pioneer dwellings under construction, as well as the door and window frames, were probably transported down the Danube River from Germany, on the same barges that brought the people to the region. Since the earliest houses were built of tamped earth and thatched with reeds, the other construction materials were readily available on site, and they were free. It is safe to say that most people who view the painting for the first time know little or nothing about the man who painted it, but are still struck by the obvious authenticity of it. Who else but the native son of Banat could so accurately have captured the soul of his homeland and countrymen and displayed it so vividly on canvas? The painting is so realistic that some Danube Swabians look at the characters in the painting and in their mind's eye see an ancestor or two. I know I do. Jäger is a descendant of the earliest German settlers in the Banat. His father was born in 1839 and trained as an army surgeon in Budapest, later settling in Tschene near Hatzfeld. He married her Wagner's daughter, a well-to-do Nari public from nearby Kleinjetscha. She died soon after their marriage. The elder Jäger later married an M. Schuler from Bild, who was 16 years his junior. Her adoptive parents were so poor, they were unable to provide her with even a small dowry. Stefan was born in Tschene on the 16th of May, 1877. He attended the local German school there, the private Weisner School in Temesburg, Hungarian, Timișoara, Romanian, Timișoara, and finished 6th grade of public school in Sigedin, Siegd. Besides special art courses he took later, that was the extent of his formal education. Stefan's artistic talents were clearly evident at an early age. A local art teacher named Obendorf advised his parents to send him to Budapest to study at an art school. Since Stefan could not afford the tuition fees, Obendorf arranged with Count Siki to pay them. In return, Jäger was required to tutor the Count's unruly children. He was fortunate to study under two outstanding artists, the professors Idbalo and Bertalan Sekeli, and acquired a thorough knowledge of his craft. After completing his studies in Budapest, he traveled to Austria, Germany, and Italy to further his artistic education. In 1901, his travels were unexpectedly curtailed due to the death of his father, and Stefan had to return to Tschene to attend to family matters. In 1902, Jäger moved to Vienna, where he earned a meager living as a freelance artist painting landscapes, still life subjects, and religious pictures. At this time, Jacob Knopf, the bookkeeper of the first savings bank in Gertianosch, Banat, came up with the idea of a painting to honor the early German settlers of the region. Knopf's boss, Adam Roeser, the owner of the bank, was enthusiastic about the concept, and on Jäger's next visit to the Banat, he commissioned him to paint a panorama that would do justice to their German ancestors. The fundraising drive netted around 4,560 Austrian kronen. This was more than enough to send him to areas of Germany from which the majority of the colonists had come in order to study the mode of dress the colonists would have worn when they came to Hungary. On his return from Germany in 1906, Jäger began to work on the painting. Most of it was done in Hatzfeld, where he had taken up residence, but he also did some work on it in Budapest. When the huge painting A Triptych was completed in 1910, it measured 5.1 m in width and 4.35 m in height, approximately 17 by 5 feet. It was formally unveiled at the 1910 Trade and Agricultural Exhibition in Gertianosch, now Romania, by Abbot Canon Franz Blaskovics. Since Adam Roeser had paid for part of the painting, he considered it his property. When his business floundered, he was forced to sell it to meet financial obligations. The city of Temesburg bought it for 2,000 kronen with the proviso that Jäger was to receive half that amount. At the suggestion of Mayor Telbis, the painting was first hung in the Southern Hungarian Historical Society's gallery. Subsequently, another mayor named Jimmel, a Danube Swabian, moved it to a more suitable location in the municipal building, where it remained for many years. In 1941, the Jäger painting was acquired by a Danube Swabian association in exchange for two works by a Romanian artist named Popescu. During the festivities marking the 225th anniversary of the liberation of Temesburg from the Turks, the painting was hung in the Seeharter House, a German cultural center, where it remained until 1944. What happened to the painting after the communist takeover in Romania? According to George Bachmann, a native of the Danube Swabian community of Blumenthal, Maslach, it, along with some other German artifacts, was stored in a vacant house in the town whose owner had immigrated to the USA prior to the war. For a time, Peter Barth, the Danube Swabian poet, was the librarian in the American's house, and once showed the rolled-up painting to Bowman. Like so many other German homes in Romania under communist regime, the American's house was eventually turned over to so-called Romanian colonists. One day, two young boys offered to sell Bowman a very large and very beautiful painting they'd found in the German house their parents were given by the state. The price, 2 liters of red wine. This was a price almost anybody in that impoverished country could afford, and Bachmann lost no time in coming up with the wine, for he knew that the rolled-up canvas was the irreplaceable Jäger painting. At least the canvas is now back in German hands. For a time, Baumann displayed it to townsfolk in his backyard and eventually donated it to the Banat County Museum, where it was promptly stored in the basement so no one would see it. For political reasons, party bosses explain, it was to remain there for over 10 years. At a meeting of the International Lino Society in Temesburg, Nikolaus Berwanger, the chairman of the Times County Council of German Workers appealed to the Bucharest regime to place the painting in the Stefan Jäger House Museum in Hatzfeld. To his surprise, the request was granted, and the slightly damaged triptych has been on display there ever since. All his life, Stefan Jäger remained the proverbial starving artist. Although he produced some of our greatest paintings, he never made much money. Only once in his lifetime did he exhibit his paintings publicly. That was in 1930 in the Banat County town of Grossbechgerek, now in Yugoslavia. As a result of the exhibition, the Swabian German Cultural Society, headquartered in Nusats, Novi Sad Yugoslavian, ordered some canvases from him, but most were sold to individuals in areas of Bachka County, where the majority of the population was German. What happened to the many Jäger paintings after the demise of the German ethnic group in Yugoslavia? No one seems to know. Serbians too had bought Jäger paintings, and some of these wound up in Austria and Germany after the last war. A scene from a wheat field now hangs in the Danube Swabian Museum in Sindelfingen, Germany. The Neuland newspaper in Salzburg, allegedly in contravention of copyright laws, made some reprints of some of Jäger's work and sold them throughout the world. According to a former editor of that now defunct paper, his company did pay a considerable sum of money to a relative of Jäger's then living in Germany for the copyrights. However, it appears that Stefan Jäger, the born loser, never got a cent of it. When Jäger reached the age of 80, the Romanian government paid him a modest pension of 800 leu per month, just enough to keep him from starving. Still, it was the only regular income he ever received in his lifetime. He never married and died in Hatzfeld on March 16, 1962, at the age of 85. Although he died in poverty, Stefan Jäger endowed the Danube Swabian community with some of our greatest cultural treasures, paintings that portray life as it once was in a beautiful homeland that is now foreign to us. Today's Banat and the town of Hatzfeld are the antithesis of the landscape and people Jäger knew so well and depicted so realistically, with over 90% of the indigenous Danube Swabians gone. The houses are falling into ruin, and the cultivation of the fields has been greatly neglected. This is self-evident to the casual wanderer who happens to stray into the region. Romania is definitely off the beaten track as far as tourism is concerned. But for the Danube Swabians, the Stefan Jäger Museum in Hatzfeld should be worth a visit, not only to view a bit of our past, but also to pay homage to a compatriot who endowed us with vivid landscapes and realistic portrayals of life as it once was in a beloved homeland that no longer exists.
We're really grateful for your time spent tuning into this captivating episode that dives into the history of the Danube Swabian. Our content takes inspiration from the insightful writings of Frank Schmidt, unraveling the fascinating story of the Danube Swabians. We've explored the life and artistic contributions of Stefan Jäger, a Danube Swabian folk artist whose paintings vividly depict life in their former homeland. His renowned work, The Arrival of German Colonists in Banat, stands as a poignant representation of the early settlers' journey to the Pannonian Lowlands. Jäger's artistic journey led him from his homeland to Vienna and beyond, resulting in a masterpiece that resonates with the Danube Swabian diaspora. Despite facing challenges and living in relative obscurity, his legacy endures through his art. Today, his paintings grace galleries, museums, and private collections, and the Stefan Jäger Museum in Hatzfeld stands as a tribute to his enduring impact. If this episode caught your interest, we warmly invite you to support us by liking, subscribing, and sharing it with your Danube Swabian relatives, friends, and social clubs. Anyone intrigued by the enthralling history of the Danube Swabians. These small gestures truly make a big impact for a new channel like ours. For those seeking more information about the Danube Swabian or this episode, feel free to explore the show notes below for links and related resources. Once again, we extend our heartfelt thanks for tuning in. Until our next encounter.
Wir sind Donauschwaben, Kindeskinder.